Hello and welcome back to Colette and Matt have entered the chat. It's a weekly conversation about the most very important topic in all of human civilization. That's right.
Not world hunger?
It is. No. Look, you and I sat down. We're like, what are we going to do a podcast about? And we talked about world hunger. We talked about, what was the other one? Poverty was probably the big one that we were going to do a show about. And and I know you're very passionate about these things, but I said, look, poverty is not fun. It's not sexy.
Oh my God. Oh, sorry. Just cracking up over here.
So let's do it about something that people love, and that is video games. I do
love the video games.
I love the video games. My name is Matt Silverman. You might know me from this show, from other things, but you probably know my co-host here. Her name is Colette Bennett. Colette.
Yeah.
What's good?
Everything's good, man. I have so much stuff that I'm excited to talk about with you today. Yeah. I'm just like, yay. Let's talk about nerdy stuff.
We plan a little bit and sometimes we kind of give each other a heads up about what we're going to chit chat about. And today we're flying a little blind in a fun way. Your excitement is about things that I don't know what's happening is getting me excited. So
you know, throughout my entire career, people have always said, oh my God, your enthusiasm is amazing. Like that is like the most consistent. So I don't know what it is about me being excited that makes other people excited, but hey, like cool.
This is why people came out of the woodwork to support you when you returned to this microphone, is because your excitement is that thing. It's just very natural and honest. It's just, you are who you are, and people really enjoy you, myself included. And there's no bullshit there. You know what I mean? Like it's just people like to get excited with you. And so I'm glad you're on the internet, being excited about stuff. It's good for the world.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, I don't know. Let's talk about what we're playing.
Of course,
because that's gonna bring us into all the things. But let's start there. Official segment music here. Not the new releases, not the hot new thing. We're done with E3. The dust has settled. What are we playing right now? What has caught your attention? You were excited to share something.
Yes. Well, I was really excited because I actually took like an hour before the podcast to finally play it. And I don't know if you're anything like me in this way, but like, you know, I'll like sort through my Steam and be like, ooh, this is coming. Ooh, this looks really good. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a demo for this. And like, I'll download some things, but I often never get to them. So I really have to make time to like sit back down at my desk after a work day and be like, okay, I want to like, you know, put an hour in, but I did that. And I feel so excited by what I played. So this game is called Sable. And the best way for me to quickly sum it up is that in the hour I played, the impression I got was if you were to mash Journey, Eco, and Breath of the Wild together into a game, it's kind of got all those vibes, but it's also like really uniquely its own thing. This game is like the most Colette Bennett. Like it's literally like someone just like took all the things that I love and just like hammered them together and was like, hello, this is for Colette Bennett. It
totally is that. Yep.
Yeah, like it's a super story rich game. It's an open world, so you get to explore, but like, and the writing, like I noticed the writing a lot.
I've heard that a lot, and I'm so thrilled to hear that from you.
It's just little touches, you know, it's little things. It's you know, the way that someone expresses a sentence or a sentiment or whatever. But I was like, oh, this is cool. So the whole concept of the game is that Sable is your character you play, and you are going to take her through a rite of passage called the gliding. I don't know what that means yet, because I didn't play enough game yet. But quick
question. You only did an hour.
Yeah.
Just now. Is she a she officially? Is that known?
Yeah, actually, I checked that because I noticed in what the hour I played that I did see a they pronoun, but the game's official description refers to Sable as a her. But
which is great. And just for the listeners, this character is masked or cloaked, so there's really you don't see a face right away or ever, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, I wondered that actually because in the conversations in that first hour of game, no one ever specifically identified Sable as a female, so I actually wasn't sure. But I just noticed when I pulled it up and got some more info before we hopped on. But I do like though that so far the characters kind of have this sexless vibe.
Yeah.
You don't really nothing about what they're wearing or what they're doing really signifies. And it's interesting, right? Because you're not seeing faces, so that's obviously a part of it. And you would think, oh, well, you would notice a body, but because they wear cloaks and interesting clothing, you really don't. There's also a scene early on that I did with a speeder bike. And then I was like, oh, this has Star Wars vibes too. The speeder bike across the desert, because when you open up into the game, you're in this vast, beautiful desert. And it's a game where you load it up and the minute you see the art style, you're like, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know what you would call that style, kind of like a line art, every scene looks like a graphic novel.
Yeah, line art is a good. I would not know that. I know what you mean by that term, but I'm not an artist, so I wouldn't have gone there initially. But line art is a perfect term. And then cell shaded, is that accurate?
I get confused about cell shaded because when I first saw cell shaded games, I was like, oh, okay, people call this cell shaded. And then over time, I heard other things referred to as that I didn't recognize as the same style. And I was like, okay, maybe it's diversifying and I don't really fully know. But, at any rate, probably somewhat far from an expert there. But this is published by Raw Fury, which I thought was actually pretty cool. They've done a couple of other things I've really liked. I really like Backbone. And I remember a couple years ago playing... what was the name of that game? Mosaic, that I really, really liked that they've done as well.
I'm glad that you played their previous stuff. I perceived this erroneously as a small studio's first game. They're coming on the scene, but clearly not. They have quite a bit of experience here with good games in the past.
You're partially right. So they're Raw Fury is publishing, and Shedworks is the developer, and they have never done anything before. But I'm not going to lie,
gotcha.
For a first game, this is like a jaw dropper.
It's a big one. Yeah.
Wow. There's not a ton of information about it on its Steam page. It basically kind of tells you roughly what I just told you. But this just looks like a world to get really lost in. And actually what I thought was interesting was when I was playing it, I thought about you and I was like, this might be one of those things where Matt and I perfectly, the two circles overlap, because it's an open world exploration game. And the setting just reminds me of something you'd like, but it also has it's like a story rich game, and I can already tell.
Yes.
And I also noticed that, when you played Breath of the Wild and you just kind of had this it was so lovely to be there, in that space. That's what Sable feels like to me. Just being there is kind of awe-inspiring and peaceful. I felt at peace while I was exploring it. Yeah, it really was. So now you know why I was so excited. I was like, ooh. And then I was like, what's the gliding? What's the rite of passage that I'm going to go through? And, what is this world? And it's desert-like, but at the same time, it kind of has its very own. You feel like you're truly in a foreign new world that you've never seen before, and I think that's so cool. It's got a nomadic vibe, but
yes,
you know what I mean. So you're saying a lot of things that make me wonder if you've played it already. Actually,
I have a mini story here.
Ooh.
When we were talking about our E3 sort of hey, what are our top picks? Sable was among them for me. And when I saw it reemerge, I was like, oh yeah, I saw something, a trailer, an art thing, an art screenshots or whatever years ago, and was like, yeah, that one I got to keep an eye out for all the exact precise reasons that you described. So I was excited to see it pop up again at E3 or Summer Games Fest or whatever. And we've talked briefly about this. My computer, my PC, the main hard drive failed, which I learned later. Mm-hmm. And so I took that opportunity to get a new PC, and that took me time to get back up and running. And in the course of doing that, I was figuring out like, okay, is everything running properly? Are all the games that I previously was previously playing, are they running properly? And there was a bunch of tweaking and nonsense that I needed to do to figure that out. And in that process, I was like testing other games and was like, oh, well, you know what? Let me grab Sable and like see how well this runs. Mm-hmm. And what I realized later is that, of course, it's a demo, so it's a free demo. It's not the complete game, and it is still being worked on.
Right.
B, what I read later was that it originally ran at 30 frames per second, which is all right, but not. I don't love that, and I'm very, very particular about that sort of stuff. So I was like, but at the time I downloaded it, there was a 60 frames update to the demo. So I actually grabbed it when it was improved.
Nice.
So I grabbed it and I was like, okay, let's check out Sable. Let's see how it goes. And for whatever reason, it is a work in progress. There is something wrong with what I understand to be frame times, which is not the actual frame rate of the video game, which is 60 frames per second. It runs very well at 60 frames per second. But when frames come in at varying intervals instead of regular intervals, you can still hit 60 frames per second, but there's a little bit of a, and tell me if you have experienced this or if you're sensitive to this. I'm extremely sensitive to it. A little bit of a tug. Like if you're moving the camera horizontally or side to side, or you're moving through the world very fluidly at 60 frames per second, those images should just move seamlessly. But if there is a frame time issue, there's a little bit of a little bit of a tug, a little bit of a as the world moves across the screen. And that was happening real bad in Sable. And so I downloaded it at a bad time because I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong with my computer? This game is beautiful, but it's a demo of a very low poly, like when I say low texture, I actually mean no texture. Like it's just colors. There's no textures in this game. So this game should fucking run on a toaster. You know what I mean? And it's not running well here. OMG, what's wrong with my very expensive new computer? And after a lot of other figuring out of things, this is also fucking stupid. I downloaded No Man's Sky for some other reason, and I was playing it, and I'm like, this runs like fucking shit on this computer. What the hell's wrong with my computer? And it had the same frame time issue. And I think I'm realizing now that like No Man's Sky got an update, which is very buggy for some people. Sable is a work in progress demo, which should not be this is not a final product. It is a work. So I came at this at a very bad time for me and realized later that everything is fine, but it was like, OMG, what the heck's going on?
As they say, it just hit different.
It hit different for me. So I hopped in and was like, yeah, okay, I'm digging this, but I could not get past that little technical issue.
Of course.
And so I set it down. And so I'm thrilled that you played it, and I got to taste a little bit of the art style and movement. What I would love to hear about too is that the character Sable, the main protagonist, it's a third-person game. The character animation runs at a lower frame rate than the world animation. So you're playing this game at a fluid 30 or a fluid 60. The character animates maybe at like 12 frames per second, similar to like an Into the Spider-Verse stop motion kind of Wallace and Gromit claymation kind of thing.
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And it looks... Sometimes I see that thing going on in video games, and it really is hard because it looks like the game is broken. It doesn't look like... It doesn't feel good to play. This looks really lovely, and it's really well done in the very, very little that I've touched it. And so I don't know if you've noticed that or if you enjoyed that as much as I did.
Well, it's funny, right? So I'm not sure if this is exactly the same as what you're experiencing, but when I was navigating and moving my character around, I noticed that to like look around me, like if I wanted to say like turn like 45 degrees, right or something, that I had to kind of like scroll my mouse multiple times to get there.
People were saying that the camera sensitivity was way too low, which they recently patched. They just fixed it.
Right.
Yes.
And I didn't try to change that because I was just absorbed in the game at the time. But I think when I go back in, I probably will. But other than that, I personally didn't have any issues with it. But I think like over time, I've definitely noticed that like you will notice quality issues or frame rate issues or things about games that I have to admit, I don't necessarily notice them unless they're pretty janky.
And God bless you, because that is a mental illness for my part. And you are a normal human being who's like, oh, this game is fun. And I'm a person who's like, 59 frames? Fuck this thing, and kick it to the curb.
You really need a t-shirt that says 59 frames, fuck this. And in fact, if you would like me to letter that for you, I can make that a reality.
I really think I'm going to take you up on that.
59 FPS, fuck this. That's hilarious.
Look, we have to do the PG version because the only human beings I see in this world are like children and like moms. So I can't wear a "fuck this" t-shirt out in the world anymore. But
that's okay. I'll make you a wallpaper instead, so you can put it somewhere where it's private to just you.
Do me a personal favor, and again, you may not even perceive it, but boot up. Go back into Sable and enjoy Sable, but put your character in the center of the screen and just pan the camera. I don't know if you're playing a mouse. Actually, use a controller if you can.
Okay.
And just pan the camera slowly left and right. And if it's working as intended, it should just be this smooth, seamless gliding across your screen. Don't even go at the max speed. Just go as I'm taking in the scenery. But look really closely, and then if you see this sort of it's not a frame drop, it's not a stutter, it's just a little bit of it's hard to, I can't even describe it verbally, but it's a hiccup, it's a twitch, it's a little bit of
if when I was pulling my camera left and right, I kind of felt like I had to pull harder, and I wonder if that's what it is.
If you pull hard and you pull fast, especially if you're playing an action game, which I don't think this is super actiony, but if you're moving quickly, it's imperceptible. But if you're moving very methodically, which this game, even walking through the world is a nice methodical pace, and it's beautiful. Tell me if you see it, because if you see it on your machine and I see it on my machine, then I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? I just would love to know that. I'd love to have that satisfaction. But also,
I can do that.
I'll wait for the full release. I'll let them polish it up. All good. But I'm thrilled you tried it. And I'm loving that you love it. It is in the Venn diagram that is Colette and Matt. It is right in that middle. And I love like you said, Breath of the Wild, open world, story, exploration, but it has that Star Wars vibe of
it does.
This is some backwater desert tribe in a faraway land, riding on hoverbikes. It doesn't fit into any mythological category. It's just rad, and that is why I'm here for it.
That's a perfect way of putting it. You can definitely see bits and pieces of what's inspired them, but what I like about it is that they show as inspirations, not as copies.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's hard to do. I know when I started out as a writer, all of my writing sounded like Stephen King's because I worshiped Stephen King. It took me a long time to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I had to develop my own voice over time. So it's,
right.
It's hard not to imitate the things that impress you the most.
You learn to shift that homaginess into the background and keep your your stuff in the foreground somehow over time. You develop that taste.
And then eventually you're able to like I think they're doing here, like weave into the fabric of your own voice, like the influences, but they're in there, but it's not necessarily like just it and nothing else. It's you too.
Is there voice acting in this, or is it all text dialogue and such?
I heard no voice, so I'm assuming that probably not. Yeah.
It's got a real storybook vibe too. Again, because of that color palette and the animation style. It's a special game. I hope it delivers. Because like, and we've talked about this. It's like some games are like cute little moments, and then you play it for 3 hours and wasn't that nice. But like, I would like this to be a meaty game where I want this to be a Breath of the Wild experience-ish, where you can, like you said, go off into the wilderness and just enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's possible that it could be. Also, I just noticed looking at the updates page that one of the developers that responded to it is Greek, which is interesting because I don't think I've played a lot of games made by Greek developers. So that's pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't think of any studios off the top of my head.
I mean, that I know of.
Of course. Something you said about Breath of the Wild too. Tell me if you can relate to this. When you play a game in a beautiful space that, like you said, you just like inhabiting that space.
Mm-hmm.
But the game does not allow you to sit down. There is something about, I'm an adventurer, I'm Link, I'm fighting evil, whatever. But over here, I'm just in this little cute town, and I just want to like sit down by on a bench or a campfire or whatever. And I believe correct me if I'm mistaken, Breath of the Wild had a mechanic where you can sit down and rest by a campfire, and that was like a rejuvenation or a cooking thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But there was no way to just like sit on a mountaintop.
No.
And I was like,
if you think about
the game, you made
made
this beautiful game. Why can't I sit on this mountaintop?
Guess because they thought no one would want to do that, which is weird.
That's weird.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But I noticed also that Sable opened with a scene that reminded me a little bit of Journey, when you're meditating on the top of the sand dune and then you stand up and you begin the game. And I was like, I hope, I've written in the past about this for the concept of meditative, or oh God, I wrote a whole feature about it and I can't think of the name of what I named it. But
you coined something.
Yeah, kind of a peaceful, meditative space, a space where like the atmosphere of the game is so powerful and so enveloping that you really do lose yourself, but also like a game where you feel very peaceful, versus a game that's more like loud and noisy and chaotic.
Yeah.
I always really gravitated to that kind of game.
I have fond memories as a kid and a younger person just being inside of game worlds and really inhabiting them and really loving them and doing nothing in them sometimes. And I'm having a little trouble doing that, even in games and environments that I love. And I think this is an old age restlessness, or like a middle age restlessness kind of problem that I'm also having in my IRL life too. But I really miss that. You know what? It's a funny story. I have a specific memory of playing Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which is the open worldiest of open world games, especially of its time, precursor to Skyrim. And just wandering around and just taking in these beautiful landscapes and doing whatever. And then loving that, like, randomly the weather would change and it would start raining. And it would be like, oh, it's raining. I better go under this bridge to get to get out of the rain. Just as a role-playing sort of inhabiting the world kind of thing, that's what you would naturally do. You wouldn't frolic around in the rain. You'd go and watch the rain and wait for the rain to stop. And the game engine did not have collision with the rain. So the rain just came right through whatever was above me, and it was still raining on me. And I was like, damn it. Like, all I want to do is like sit down in a rainstorm and watch rain, but I can't be sheltered from the rain. Isn't that weird and disappointing? And I remember going online looking for mods for the game, because it was a PC game, to try to figure out if that could be modded into the game. And I must have learned that, like, hey, we've tried. The game engine is just limited. We can't do collision with raindrops, so that's a limitation of the game. And I just remember feeling like, man, wouldn't it be great to be under a bridge in a rainstorm in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion? And I don't know. I really relate to that environmental inhabitants stuff that you're describing.
It's interesting, right? It's like, I think when people talk about Breath of the Wild, they're like, oh my God, it's a perfect game. It's a beautiful game. But I don't know if a lot of people can put to voice the fact that they felt incredibly peaceful while playing the game, that there was something that was soothing about the game to them. Like, those are things that I think are harder, like, you know, to put into words. Of course, it's a beautifully crafted game in all ways. But I think that for me, that's what, I'll be honest with you, it almost bumped Legend of Zelda NES out of my number one Zelda slot.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't fault you if
that's saying
it did.
A lot. That's saying a lot. That is like elbowing like 40 plus years of nostalgia, like,
right,
out of the way. But, you know, like, it's great.
But that game design is like, I've heard it described like film editing or like sound design, is like, when it's doing its job beautifully and perfect, you don't notice it. You just feel good watching the film or listening to the music, you know, good production and music. You just are like, yeah, this song feels good, or this game, I feel engaged or at peace playing this game. But but when it's bad, you're like, ugh, what the hell? Who designed that? You know?
Yeah.
So you only notice it when it's bad. And that's the magic of that game. Yeah. Every time you talk about Breath of the Wild, I do feel a pull to go back to it.
It's so good. I think about replaying it all the time, but then I'm like, you know, just wait for Breath of the Wild 2. Cause like, it wasn't a short game.
No, certainly not. I would love to look at my little stat there and see how many hours I put into it, because I did not go for all the Koroks, rebuilt Tarrytown all the way to the max and got most of the armors and such. But I did not feel compelled to be like super duper completionist. Never did any DLC. I don't know if you did.
I did try one of the DLCs, and they are like fucking hard mode. Like if you were like, hey, I want Breath of the Wild to kick my ass, and I was like, that's not what I'm here for. I just want to chill out in this beautiful Hyrule. So like, it wasn't a fit for me, but like, I'm sure other people really enjoyed it, you know?
Isn't that weird that they're like, okay, this amazing, you know, top 10 game of all time that everyone loves. You know what people are going to want from this beautiful, peaceful game? Hardcore kick-ass mode. Like, who is that for?
I honestly don't know, because I feel like that's just not, like nothing about the game is like, oh yeah, like let's make a super, super, super hard mode. So I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, very
probably
strange.
They weren't thinking, probably they were like, God, I'm so fucking tired after making this gigantic game. Like, I don't know what to do here.
Let's just put a room with lots of enemies. There's your DLC. Good luck. I mean, not to shit on anyone, but like that, it's basically an arena battle, right? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, no, you're not.
Yeah. But then they added another DLC, which was like, and here's a motorcycle. And I'm like, no, I don't think we want we don't have motorcycles in Hyrule. I don't think we want that, do we?
You're like, you are canceled. We do not motorcycle here.
Nintendo is canceled. I don't remember who was saying this in the Discord. Was it Docky? Forgive me if I'm misattributing this, but there was discussion about why doesn't Nintendo have a live service game? And a few folks were chatting about like, okay, well, if Nintendo even did, it's so out of character for them to have that. But even if they did identify a business opportunity to be like, we could sell this game for $60, or we could make a free-to-play game where you're going to buy every hat for Mario or whoever. I would be shocked to ever see that. But what if they did? And then some of that discussion turned to like, all right, well, what franchise would that be?
In a way, I kind of feel like they're testing it out with their mobile stuff because like, you know, like, shoot, I can't remember the name of the Mario on rails, like racing game.
Yeah. It's Jump? Mario Jump or Jumpers?
I can't remember. Right? I don't know.
And there's a Mario Kart, which actually makes a ton of sense for this model. If it was a free-to-play Mario Kart where you can trick out your car, upgrade it, hats, costumes, characters.
Yeah, and then like I don't know now if you can buy anything, but I know for Pocket Camp, which I played quite a bit when it first came out, no, wait a minute. I think there was something you could buy. At any rate, I think that's how they're trying to kind of come at those types of things. But I wish that they did have something like that on the Switch, quite honestly. I think that would be amazing.
What's your thought on Pocket Camp? And would you recommend an Animal Crossing fan who is done with New Horizons to jump into Pocket Camp? Would it be a disappointing experience by comparison?
You know, I feel like for me, my takeaway from it was basically very based on when I played it. So let me explain that. So I played it before New Horizons was available. And so it was like kind of that really long drought between Animal Crossing games when you're like, God, I wish they just make an Animal Crossing game for the Nintendo Switch, right?
Totally.
So I think what happened was it showed up in a time when what I really wanted was a full Animal Crossing game. It was well done. It has all of the polish of every Nintendo product, you know, first party product you've ever played. I felt like, and this is weird, right? Because when you play a regular Animal Crossing game, I feel like there is some amount of like, okay, go do this quest to achieve this thing, you know, like a little, not as much as there is in other things. But I felt like the fetch questiness was turned way up in Pocket Camp. And there came a point where I was like, I feel so repetitive. Like I'm just doing the same thing all the time. And I don't really like that. So that part did not appeal to me. Like after like, I don't know, a couple of months of playing, like when the cuteness had, you know, worn off and I was just like, okay, I just feel like it's really repetitive now, you know? And like
in a mobile environment where you can just open the app and then tick a couple boxes in between other things in real life. I'm not saying I would forgive that cranked up fetch questiness, but like, I get why it's a little, that dial is turned up there. And I'm not like diametrically opposed to it in that format.
Yeah, well, you might not be. That's the thing. Like, I have a friend who plays it, and to this day, she's one of my closest friends. She absolutely loves it, and she's like, I just really enjoy. I find it really peaceful, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. But like when I started playing, it was so early on as well that like they had two events around the same time, an Easter event and a Golden Week event, I think. So it was like cherry blossoms and like, Sakura. That's right. It was the cherry blossom season. And like, I remember it was kind of weird. Like all of the Easter stuff was like hideously ugly, at least to me. And then like the cherry blossom stuff was beautiful, but like it was the two events like bumped into each other or something like that. It was a little bit confusing. And it was like, oh wait, why doesn't it do this? Why doesn't it do that? You know? And I felt like I had a real drive to play. In fact, fun fact that you'll probably think is pretty funny. I was during the time where I was playing it every day and trying to visit other people's islands to like make major money. I had it on my desk. And so like, I'd leave it and I'd kind of keep an eye on things while I was working.
On your phone?
No, I'm sorry. I should have specified. I just like changed topics without even telling you. I was thinking about New Horizons.
Oh yeah, okay. I was like, okay. Yeah.
So I would have the Switch on my desk, right? And so one time I had this meeting And by the way, everyone I worked with on my direct team was also playing the game. So it was everyone was like, oh my God, did you get this? Oh, come to my island tonight. I'm going to get you this. So it was that was happening. So we pop into the meeting, and the owner of the company that I work for, whom you also may know, was in the meeting. And I kid you the fuck not. Like all I was doing was like opening the game to like try to quickly run into a queue or something like that. Like I was going to go to someone else's island. So I was going to open it and mute it and put it on the side, but I forgot to mute it. So as I logged into the meeting, literally the moment I logged into the meeting was like, and like to this day, my boss will like be like, she was like, that was the worst, but at the same time, I fucking lost it. And like to this day, I can just literally go do, 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 and she'll just crack the fuck up. And I was like, man, Animal Crossing problems right there.
It was what anyway, a time.
That side story really didn't explain, like, I guess maybe it did explain that, like, I kind of gave up Pocket Camp because I felt like it got repetitive, right? But I feel like now, like, I just went to the Nintendo site and I was like, oh, now you can like meet Sanrio characters and like decorate your house with like Hello Kitty stuff. And you can, you know, like for Super Mario 35th, like they were like, hey, cool, like you can get Mario's hat and you can do all these things. And I was like, maybe it would be more fun now.
You have banked a lot of event stuff, although you'd have to trade for all that stuff because all those events are over. So trading is really fun, and we really have a lot of fun going into the Discords and the Nookazons and just hopping over to people's islands to just complete the collection. You know, like my wife. So when
you say we, do you mean the kids play
it? My daughter and I played it a ton, and then we got my wife into it, and now she is just the president of the island, and she plays still to this day every single night. Mostly just cleaning up weeds and sticks, but when the Sanrio stuff came out, it was like, you can buy these cards at Target. Well, you couldn't get those sold out in 1 millisecond.
4 seconds.
But what they gracefully did was like, you can unlock the items with the Sanrio cards, and then you can duplicate them through your catalog, maybe in a limited amount or whatever. And so the items became part of the economy in a way that wasn't like 400 Nook Miles tickets and you can get this Hello Kitty chair. It was like the prices were normal, you know? So we did not get any of the cards. We just were like, well, now this is content to play in the game. We can, you know, we're millionaires and have infinite Bells and Nook Miles tickets at this point because my wife just grinds every single night. So it's like, yeah, we'll just fly to this island and get this Hello Kitty chair. And then she leaves it outside of my daughter's house, and she'll log in a week later and be like, oh my God, I'm going to redo my house with all these cute things. It's just really sweet and fun. So like, there is nothing to do in the game for you today, but if you wanted to acquire those items, you could have fun acquiring them. But this leads me to another question, which is, you know, E3 came and went, and there was zero, and the fucking biggest Nintendo game in a long ass time, and they didn't even mention it, update it, say anything about it. There's and all the events that are recurring now, the April, the Easter stuff, it's exactly the same as it was last year. So if you binged hardcore the way we all did together during work last March and June, it's just going around the merry-go-round again. There's nothing new to do or get. So my question there is, A, what the fuck? Like, why can't they? Why is there no like DLC for Animal Crossing, etc.? But B, if you fired up Pocket Camp, Pocket Camp being a mobile live servicey game, which I assume has microtransactions in it, but please correct me.
Mm-hmm.
Is there new stuff to get and buy, or no?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. And I will say that, like, you know, we've talked a lot about our like gaming personalities. And one thing I've really realized about myself is that I have to have a story that's absorbing me. And if I don't have a story that's absorbing me, I'm going to lose interest quickly. So like, you know, what's the story of Animal Crossing? Well, you know, it's not like it has a robust story, but, you know, we all know that we're going to be in debt to Tom Nook for a house and we're going to talk to cute, you know, but like, I think like, for instance, I noticed that as soon as I paid my house off in full, my interest in the game just like dropped.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the big carrot. That is the biggest carrot. And once that carrot is gone, even in New Horizons, it was like, okay, you've gotten the final addition to your house, so now you got to pay me. And it's like, why? Yeah. There's nothing else to unlock after that. Why would I pay you 800,000 bells to unlock nothing? Like, I already have the house. Like, so that was weird. That was a weird end game,
right?
Thread there that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. So we've gotten so many hours of joy out of this beautiful product. So it is a crime to say like, "Oh, fucking Animal Crossing." Like that's wrong to say that.
Yeah.
But it is also, it's truly flabbergasting to see the sales numbers and the interest. People who have never touched a video game in their life are like, I can't stop playing Animal Crossing during the pandemic. And then Nintendo's like, we don't need to make any more money from that. We're done here. We don't care anymore. Like, it's just very strange.
Right. For sure. Yeah, I get it. I mean, you know, it's funny the way I see it, and I'm sure many other people see it this way. I see it as it was there exactly when I really, really needed a fun game to lose myself in, which was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes.
You know?
And you know, we've talked a little bit about this, the cozy groves of the world and such, of like, I think there is an Animal Crossing sized hole in many people's hearts that, or, you know, in gamers' hearts for sure, of like, I really want that again. I've already played Stardew Valley. I've already played Animal Crossing, and these other life sim, collect 'em all, cutesy whatevers. Some of them are okay, and some of them are just not up to snuff. And we're waiting for the next one.
Sure.
You know, the world is waiting for the next one, which again is like, if Nintendo just came in and be like, guess what, everyone? There's all new things in Animal Crossing now, and it's a get ready. Like, that would kill. I'd pay for it. I'd pay $20.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. This idea came to my mind. Like, of course you can plant your own garden, right? But like, I don't know. What if you were able to like make a vegetable garden, or what if you were able to like, I don't know, just like, there's got to be other things in the world that would help it continue to grow that you could do. And I think one thing that definitely took the fun out of it for me is when I found out about Nookazon, and then I found out about ways to make a ton of money really quickly.
That's it.
Yeah. And when I did, of course I was like, I'm gonna pay off my house. And then I paid off my house and I was like, oh. So a lesson to all of you who are listening, don't do that if you want to continue to enjoy the game for a longer period of time, because I did it and I was like, I'm rich. And then I was like, oh, there's nothing else for me to really do or get, or, you know, like, there just isn't.
What a life lesson.
I know.
Think about all those depressed millionaires who are like, I have nothing. There's nothing else for me to do now.
Yep.
Except live in my big mansion. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that allegory. Yeah. It's so, I love games with economies. I love the idea that virtual goods have value, and that I want to exchange them with other players. And this is the going rate for this thing and that thing. And I'm going to look online and use tools. But there's no scarcity in Animal Crossing. So there is trade and there is money, But without scarcity, there's no true economy. So you can just break the economy for your own character.
Right.
And it has no effect on the wider Animal Crossing world. And all it does is ruin the game for you. And then you're done. And what if there was a cool real economy, a real trading system in the game?
Yes. Like you have to do something to give it. How do I put this? Like, I don't know, like more of a robust like reason to continue to log in.
A meaning.
A meaning. Yeah.
There was all this data mining about cooking systems and that they were going to bring back the coffee shop from previous iterations, which I was not familiar with because I only played the original GameCube Animal Crossing, which was the port from Japan, the first Animal Crossing.
Okay.
And I love like the idea of a world that is alive even when you're not there was so that is my jam. Like there's something about that simulation, even though it's so rudimentary and silly when you really peel back the layers. That was so cool to me. And also, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I think I found I have old consoles in the basement, found my old GameCube, found the Animal Crossing disc because it was GameCube, but could not locate the Animal Crossing, the memory card. Found one memory card and it did not have the Animal Crossing save on it and misplaced the other one years ago. But like the idea of booting up a 20-year-old village and the villagers being like, where the fuck have you been? And showing that to my kids was so fun. The idea of that. And I could not find the memory card.
Oh my God.
New Horizons came out and my daughter and I were just like basking in the beauty and majesty of this amazing, lovely game. And who shows up randomly, because we didn't really fully understand the mechanics of how to like self-select villagers. It was more like, okay, the villagers will come when their houses are built and all that early game stuff. And Pee-wee, who was a gorilla, happened to randomly come to live on our island. And I turned to my daughter and I was like, oh my God, Pee-wee was in my first Animal Crossing town from like fucking 20 years ago. He was like my buddy in original Animal Crossing, and here he is. He's back.
Amazing.
And it was just the coolest thing.
That is extremely cool. And like that is definitely a thing that I could see, you know, like someone being like, I want to go back to see if things like that happen. Like it kind of reminds me a little tiny bit of when it was before it came out in an English version came out. But oh gosh, the game where it was a cell phone game where you would like pet cats and raise cats, and like you'd leave and then you'd come back and you might find certain cats there. Like at the time you would go look, shit, what is the name of this game? I can see it in front of me, but I can't think of the game. But it was cool because like you always had this like, oh my God, what if I just check right now? Maybe there'll be a cat I haven't seen, and I can take a picture of it. And like that went on for a really, really, really long time with that game. God, now I can't remember the name of the game.
But that's whether you find it or not, the name of it, like that aliveness.
Neko Atsume.
Okay.
Yeah. Kitty collector.
Even a Tamagotchi as a concept is so revolutionary. It's there when you're not there, like that, because when you turn off Super Mario Brothers, it's not there. It is gone until you return to it. All games are like that, except for these unique experiences. Yeah, I love that. And where are the Animal Crossing clones? You know, why did it? Only just now we're starting to see a few of these things. Again, this is why I love the idea of MMOs, that they continue to go on without you. Are you familiar with Jason? And I might be mispronouncing his last name, Roar? Jason Roar. Does that ring a bell? He's a game developer.
I don't think so.
He made sort of experimental. Maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he would want to be a guest, because that would be, I would be fangirling there.
Not fanboying.
No. Fangirling for sure. Games like Sleep is Death, where you are, it's a 2-player game and you are like creating the world for the second player as they play it. And it's sort of almost like a text adventure, but you, the human, are replying to the other player as they input commands and stuff. But he created this other more recent game called 1 Hour, 1 Life. And I hope I'm not going to misrepresent it in my explanation of it, but it is the story of humanity, where you jump into the game and you're a baby and you play the game for 1 hour in real time with however many other thousands of players are playing currently at the same time. So it's a MMO-ish, but not really. And you play it for 1 hour. In the course of 1 hour, you will grow from a baby to an old person and then die. And you have to do whatever you can in your lifetime, which is 1 hour, to do something. And that could be murdering people, or it could be planting crops, or it can be building a shelter or whatever. And what you do, and then you die, you then leave behind for the next player. So you might be killed as a baby instantly by some dickhead, and that's the end of your time with the game. But you may also contribute to something that then becomes part of the game world for the next player and the next players and the next player. And I think you can play again. Like, you're not locked out of the game forever. Like, you can obviously play again and again. But what's happening here is that the player base, through 1 hour at a time, is slowly building civilization. So like, you start, the game world starts caveman is a bad term. It's not a scientific term, but as a hunter-gatherer tribe people. And like, for all I know, they're in the space age now, because 1 hour at a time, people have turned a rock into an axe and then died and then left it for the next player or whatever. And that is the coolest thing. It's so cool. That kind of shit is very compelling to me.
Yeah, and it's easy to see why.
Maybe I'll reach out to him, because he just is. I don't know quite how he makes a living. It's just these very compelling experimental games that many people really adore, but they are not commercially like successful is a bad word.
Right.
EA is not publishing any of these games for
yes, no, they are not.
That's one way to put it.
Definitely not.
Interested. So I'll think about that. What else? I'm so glad you're playing Sable, and I would love for you to. I'm hoping you will stick with the demo. And I think I will.
I mean, I'm fascinated enough for sure. And actually, speaking of updates, I am still playing The Last Campfire, which we talked about in our episode with Syra, and it continues to totally enchant me. Another really great atmosphere, really fascinating kind of story. I'm really excited to see where that goes. So that's my update.
Fantastic.
If you were on the fence, buy The Last Campfire.
Already bought, because you and Syra were like, oh, it's like, it was literally $7 in the eShop, and I hopped into the eShop because there was that sale, and it was like Spiritfarer was super cheap, Last Campfire was super cheap, and Final Fantasy 12, which you convinced me was worth my time, and I'm eager to put that to the test. I really
do want to hear how that goes.
It's a 10, 15-year-old PlayStation game that, is, of course, like $50 in the eShop, but was half off. And I was like, all right, like, I really do want to play these missing Final Fantasy links. So it'll never be cheaper than this. Grabbed it. And so they are sitting on my Switch, and they will be played, but not yet, because I have gone back to a game called Darkest Dungeon. Have you seen it, played it?
Have you talked to me about this game? It definitely is ringing a bell.
In previous show notes, when we were like, hey, what are we going to talk about? I have dropped it in there, but I don't know that we've talked about it on the show yet.
Where have I heard it before? I can't remember. Anyway, just go on and tell me as if, I don't know, because obviously it's ringing a bell, but I can't remember
very
why.
Popular game. If you had said, "Oh, I've never heard of it," I'd be surprised, because it's definitely a hit. The developer is Red Hook Studios, and I don't know what they've done previously, and it's been out for 5 or so years at least. It was a very much a PC game that was later ported to consoles. It might even be on mobile too, which would be a wonderful experience. Completely 2D game. It runs beautifully. But the premise of this game, and many of the reasons why I adore it, and as I have stated previously on the show, I really very rarely go back and replay games. But I was craving like a turn-based strategy, dungeony, fighting monsters kind of game, and I was really trying to get into that Legend of Keepers, which I think I referenced on the very first episode of this show. And I was holding off on it for a patch that would increase the font size of this game, because I'm playing it on a Switch Lite and I can't fucking read the text. And the developer was like, "Yeah, we're going to update it." And like 2 patches have come and gone, and it's still illegible. And I'm like, I can't play this. I really want to play it. It looks great. Great community there. They're announcing DLC for it. And I can't do it. And I'm like, I'm craving this game. And you know why I'm craving it? Because it's a lot like Darkest Dungeon. And I had played Darkest Dungeon on PC and played, I would say, 90% of the campaign. Got really destroyed, kind of ramping up to the final dungeon, final boss battle. And I'll explain why that is challenging momentarily when I describe the game to you. And fell off sadly because there is permadeath in the game, and it was kind of like, oh god, I lost some critical heroes here, and to then rebuild the team to go back at this dungeon again was too much of a feat for me at that time, whenever this was on PC. So I set it aside, feeling very satisfied that I had gotten a fantastic experience with this wonderful game. And then I pop into the eShop, and Darkest Dungeon has been there for some time, but it's called the Ancestral Edition, which has all the DLC that I never played. So I'm looking at this being like, it's a good price. I did not fully complete the game. And now it's got all these new characters and mechanics and systems that I never touched. I just did not keep up with the game during the DLC. Snagged this nice, beautiful bundle, and now it's all in the palm of my hand. And I'm back in Darkest Dungeon, and it is chef's kiss. It is everything I was craving and wanting from a game. And it made me think, like, it made me reevaluate some of my habits, because it's like this compulsion to be like, what am I going to play next? Well, I want this kind of game. I want this experience, and I really want it to be meaty, and I want it to be good. I want it to be like this other game I've already played. And it's like, just fucking go back and replay the game you love. Like, why are you always seeking something that you already know is there? It's again, a mental illness that we media consumers, we're always looking for that next thing. It's an addiction for sure.
For sure.
But I'm so glad I went back to this wonderful game. So to set the stage for you, it is a dungeon crawler. The premise is that you get a letter from your ancestor. He's just called the Ancestor. And he has this estate. It's a town, basically. And the very loose backstory is that, like, he owns this estate, and they discovered something, a pathway, a portal, something, and they went a little too deep, and they were a little too greedy, and some bad shit went down, and now the whole place is crawling with monsters, and it's extremely Lovecraftian. It's very abyssal horrors from beyond beyond the veil of time and space, and it is very terrifying and worrisome. And this entire town has fallen into disrepair, and the ancestor is dead, I think, but he is speaking to you through letters, and there is a voiceover. There is a character that voices this ancestor, and it is a critical part of the game because as you fight battles, this narrator is sort of narrating the battles. And so, in games, sometimes you've got that narrator character who's just like, how do I turn this setting off? People don't care for it, but it is just wonderful in this game. And so the other hook of this game is that you have you're recruiting heroes, and there is a crusader, and there's a leper, and there's a plague doctor. You were talking about plague doctors about a previous game
yes.
once, and it reminded me. It's very medieval, Lovecraftian, or 17th, 18th century feeling, but it's totally a fantasy world, mythological world, of course. Houndmaster, mercenary, occultist, all these dark magic kind of characters. And they are like, hey, we want to get rich going into these dungeons, recruit us. And you recruit different characters. They all have different skills, very sophisticated skill system where the characters' skills will synergize with each other. So you're creating a party of 4 characters. They start out as babies, level 0, very weak. And you go on these different missions in the dungeon. And it's a side scroller almost. You're walking from left to right through these corridors, and you're going into different rooms. And you're hitting random encounters, sort of, but there are other mechanics that let you scout out where the encounters are going to be, so you can strategize and plan. So you encounter monsters, and the layout of the screen is it's very Final Fantasy, or maybe reverse Final Fantasy, 2D Final Fantasy. Your heroes are on the left, and your monsters are on the right, and the order in which the characters and monsters are positioned is very critical to the strategy. So if your melee character has a bunch of melee skills that are only work in first position, then you have to make sure that character is up front so that he or she can utilize all of their skills as effectively as possible. Some characters only utilize skills in third position, and some characters can move in different places and sort of like, hey, if I do this like lunging skill, I will lunge forward into second position, and then once I'm in second position, I can do this cool like backflip skill that will make me hidden, and then I'll move back into third position. And then the healer can be in third position or fourth position and use their skills accordingly. And so it's extremely strategic in that regard. The monsters also have similar mechanics where they need to be in certain positions to use different skills, and you can stun them, you can knock them back, you can pull them forward, all that good stuff. Here's where the game really shines. You go to 0 hit points, you're dead, and it's permadeath, so you lose your character forever. So as you invest in your characters, it becomes more and more scary, really, to bring them into higher level dungeons where, hey, I've upgraded this guy's armor, I've invested in these skills, I've made sure he's cured of all diseases, and he's ready to go. And oh shit, this run is going really bad. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And he's dead. And that's a huge blow. But then the other thing here, what this game is all about, is stress. And so characters die from death, losing hit points, but you also have to manage their stress level. And stress is a factor where if you don't have enough torches in the dungeons, their characters start to get more stressed out during battles. If enemies cast certain abilities or spells, they don't really damage hit points so much, but they freak your heroes out. And so you have a stress meter, and your stress meter ticks up and ticks up and ticks up. So as your life is ticking down, your stress meter is ticking up. Now, when the stress meter fills to the max because your characters have been in the dungeon for too long and they're getting stressed out and they're hitting that, they're crossing over that threshold, suddenly there's a point of reckoning. I forget what it's called in the game. But your character hits their maximum stress and there's a dice roll, and they can either become negatively afflicted. I think it's called afflictions, where they become abusive or selfish or hopeless, or they can rise above that stress and they can become stalwart or heroic or whatever. And all of a sudden they start kicking ass because their like mind has been broken and they rose above that moment. And that's another thing actually that's really important to mention. There's a lot of strategy games where it's like, all right, I'm positioned here, like chess. It's like, I'm positioned here, you're positioned here. I know exactly what the moves are going to make, and I'm going to make the best moves that I can. Into the Breach, which I actually haven't played, but I've heard it's like, yep, I know the board is exactly set up this way, and I'm going to make the best strategic move. Darkest Dungeon is a strategy game, and you're making the best moves possible, but dice rolls, random RNG here, is very critical. And some people don't like that, and I understand that. I really love it in this game because there is so much drama that comes into play. So it's kind of like you're in the heat of battle and things are not going so well, and your crusader who's dealing a lot of damage in the front row is at, they call it at death's door. He's down to 0 hit points, and if he gets hit in the next moment by any enemy, he will die and be lost forever. And it's the healer's turn, and she steps up, and the dice, and you know that the healer can heal between 3 and 5 hit points. There's going to be a range there, and all I need to do is get this crusader healed so he can take another hit. And the healer steps up and rolls the dice, and maybe it's like a very known quantity. She heals 3 hit points. Whew, we're going to survive another round.
Right.
Or she fucking misses and we are fucking toast. And now shit's really bad. Or a monster cast another spell and the healer is now abusive because she's so stressed out and now she's abusive. And what happens is the abusive character is like, fuck this mission. You guys suck. This is the worst. I should never have come down here. There's all this dialogue that happens during the fights. And then what that does is it stresses the other characters out. So it starts to become this slippery slope of like, all right, things are going good. We finished this room. We got the treasure. We're almost there. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then things start spiraling out of control in a very dramatic, compelling way, in a very emergent narrative way that, again, you know me, I love that emergent gameplay that is unpredictable, and you can plan for some of it and you really can't plan for some of it. Conversely, these characters can come through in the clutch. You're like, we're fucked. This is done. Run away. We're done. And then all of a sudden, your Hellion, who's like this kick-ass, axe lady, comes through with a critical hit and just obliterates the enemy. And she comes through in the clutch, and it's like, yeah, it's that moment of triumph that you didn't know was going to happen. And it really, like, you get attached to these characters because A, you're investing in them. B, they like come through in the clutch in those pivotal story, emergent story moments. And if you lose them, they're gone forever. So you really start caring about these characters that are doing their best job to stay alive and not get stressed out. And the other cool thing is like, okay, if your folks survive, you bring them back to the town, and then there is a tavern in the town. There's an abbey in the town, which is a church basically. And they can meditate and they can pray and they can gamble and they can drink, which then reduces their stress level. So if you have had a really difficult run, you need to like let your characters rest. It's not healing because their hit points don't matter at that point. They need to de-stress in order to be viable for the next run. And so then you're actually managing sort of this strategic meta game of like, I need enough characters coming into my camp so that I can, when my heavy hitters are stressed out, I need other people coming in to keep doing the dungeon, because you have to run a dungeon for time to pass so that your characters in the tavern can chill out a little bit. And so it's like a resource management, but it's like you're not managing like wood and stone, you're managing like stress. And it's really cool. It's really compelling. I just my own so if this is if my rambling is making this appeal to you or to anyone listening, my only criticism of the game is that it is a very, very long grind. And if you're not managing your roster of characters very strategically, you sort of like what's happening now is like I'm running out of money because I have a lot of stressed out good characters and a lot of like baby noobs who suck, and they're not bringing home the gold. They're not bringing home the treasure. So I don't have enough money to like pay for hookers and gamblers for my good heroes. And so I'm at a bit of a like, I'm starting to like wean these new characters in and phase out other characters, and I'm hitting a wall that I know as an experienced player, I know how to solve it, but it is a long ass grind for someone who's figuring the game out. What I will say is that they have added something called a radiant mode, which is like, hey, if you want to just play like a shorter, like a faster version of the game where it's like progress happens faster. So maybe that's like 20 hours all the way through instead of like 60, which is probably the path that I'm on right now. I'm very happy that they added like a chill out, like a less crazy mode into the game. So
for sure,
if my rambling has spooked you away from this game, know that there is it's not an easy mode. It's not a difficulty setting. It's more like, hey, when you complete a dungeon, you'll probably get double the gold and you'll just get to go faster through the mechanics, as opposed to like the slow methodical grind that I happen to enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's my grind game in bed. On a Switch, and
awesome.
That is it's working for me. So I highly recommend Darkest Dungeon. Check it out.
Awesome. I really enjoy the excitement about it. And I mean, I know you're referring to it as rambling, but I'm honestly, I don't see it that way at all. You know, I see it as, wow, Matt's really excited about this game, and that's great. Like, and I mean, I'm looking at it like I always open on Steam, like, you know, when we talk about a game, I'm always like, let me look at it. And I mean, honestly, it looks fascinating. Like, to me, I think it's something that I'm going to add to my wish list and be like, okay, like the next time this is on sale, I'm going to buy it.
Check out that art style too, because
the art style is incredible.
Spectacular, 2D, hand drawn. And I will also say, you know, if you're looking at images, you'll see the art style, but if you watch gameplay of it or a trailer, it's these 2D hand drawn images that are animated so beautifully. And it's hard to describe, but it's like paper cutouts attacking each other, and it's almost like the sound design is so good. That narrator is good, and the way when you hear you know, a sword hitting, or you know, a blood spurting, or a blight, you know, poison, you know, smashing. It's these 2D animations that really don't move very much. They just kind of go whoosh, and the camera zooms in, and these cool, grotesque monsters and heroes are like smashing into each other. And it's the sound design, and it's the art, and everything. And it is so immersive. And these little paper cutouts are not even moving. It's like playing with dolls. It's like like you're smashing two action figures together. Like, that doesn't look good, but like in your mind, you're like, you know, like that's the vibe of this. I'm probably selling it short, but they just did it right. There is an aesthetic here that is so dark, and it's very Lovecraftian. Like I said, it's, you know, there's a lot of there's an area of there's a dungeon in the game called the Cove, and it's very it's fish people that are very gruesome and tentacly in some places, and then you go deeper and deeper, and there's some very dark shit, like very like religious imagery, like people who have gone crazy because of their religiosity and things of that sort, because they went too deep in this very abyssal place, and they got touched by something, and now they are doing bad stuff down there. It's wonderfully creepy. Not horror, like the aesthetic is horror, but it is
creepy.
Not like creepy horror. No jump scares, none of that.
Yeah.
You're not like, whoa, you're not jumping out of your seat, none of that stuff.
I'm interested, not gonna lie. Yeah. I am definitely interested.
Yeah, I was hoping to pique your interest, and I
wish I could remember who else talked about this game, because when you said it, my brain was like, remember this from somewhere. I wonder if maybe Patrick, my husband, like if he maybe anyway.
Knowing a little bit about his taste, I wouldn't be shocked. And also the turn-based battle system is extremely Final Fantasy invented the core of what this is.
Right.
So you have roots there. So I think that would speak to you as well. If you are still on the turn-based strategy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing. Really, no story. The story, you get story tidbits of I'm in this new dungeon now, and then the ancestor narrator will be like, we went here and it got really fucked up, and you're gonna have a bad time. Watch out. But it's not narrative in that way, So take that as you will.
Right. Interesting. All right. Well, add to wish list.
Add to wish list. The other thing I'll say about the Switch version is that it's a mouse and keyboard game, and the controls are strange on Switch and on console. Okay. They take a lot of getting used to. I would probably play it on a computer
anyway.
But if you play handheld exclusively, it has touchscreen, and then that solves all the weird controller stuff. So take that if it's useful to you listeners, or to you, Colette. I do strongly recommend it on Switch, but know that handheld, playing it on a TV with a controller might be, don't get frustrated by that.
It really I'll just play it on my computer, honestly. Yeah. And I've noticed, and I'm sure you've probably noticed this too, that sometimes games do not go on sale on the Switch or whatever other console store, and they'll be cheap as dirt on Steam.
Oh yeah, you can grab this.
I'm all about that. I'm like, yeah.
Did I read somewhere that it is currently on Game Pass or coming to Game Pass? I don't quote me on that.
That'd be cool.
I could be wrong, but keep an eye out for a deal or a Game Pass thing going on there. Again, highly recommend.
For sure.
That's me. What else? Anything else, or shall we head on out of here?
I think that for right now that is kind of all I've got going on, but it feels like a good things to be playing and interested in. So I cannot complain. I think that's it for me.
Enjoy Sable.
I will.
Please update us next time, because and that's coming out reasonably soon.
I think something like August or September.
Yes,
is what they had. Yeah.
So not, if you're enjoying the demo, not too much of a wait there, which is really fun. I'm so happy to see so many debuts and announcements and demos, and a lot of the PC stuff is 2 months away. It's not 2023, buckle up, it's great.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Oh man, good times.
Good times indeed. Well, we thank you for entering the chat with us, dear listener or listeners. We might have 2 or 3 by this point. our theme music, of course, is by Azure Flux. Our logo is illustrated by Just Call Me Katarina. And, we always want to hear what you are playing, what you're looking forward to. You can contact us in a myriad of ways. Have entered the chat at gmail.com is our email address. Send us an email directly. We read all of them. We read most of them on the show, so please become part of this community. But also Twitter and Discord. All of these links will be in the notes of the show. There's no need to write down what I'm saying right now. Please check out the show notes or on the website, haveenteredthechat.com. You can get all this information. Subscribe on any podcast platform that you enjoy. And if you are on one that has a review system, leave one. Whether it's good or bad, just leave something so that we can see you're out there. And it really does help other people find the show. I know a lot of podcasters say that, but as a professional podcaster, I can tell you it is true.
Yeah, it makes really a big difference. Just a few minutes of your life definitely make a big difference. So if you feel spirited about us chatting about this stuff, please do think about it.
And thank you in advance for doing so. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening. And we will talk at you next week. Bye.
Bye.